Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert Podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back to the Dirt and Vert Podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have a guest with us today who I met many years ago in some backyard ultras, and Matt has ran with him as well. And we also even ran the same year at Ball State, which is the cover photo of the podcast. But Zack Lever, and Zack's got a pretty big run coming up soon that we're going to get into later after Zack tells us about his story. So Zack, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Super cool. Thanks, guys, for having me on. First of all, this is my first podcast, and to be on my local running podcast first is special as well. I think that's awesome. Team RWB has some commitments for us coming up to be on some podcasts later on, so I'm glad I got to get this one in first.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Zack Lever from a small town in Washington State in the Cascade Mountains. That separates eastern and western Washington. A little town called Cleveland, Washington. We graduated 69 students. My dad was a logger, so that was the way he made a living. I had 6 brothers and sisters, and in that small logging community, the spotted owl came in and kind of restricted the logging, so it kind of shut down that town. About that time is when Zack was getting ready to graduate high school. Not a whole lot for Zack to do, not a whole lot of options. So the Army came calling, and I was proud. I was patriotic, wanted to join the Army anyway, so it worked out well. And I knew immediately, even before I went in, I wasn't just going to do 4 years. I was going in to do at least 20, right from the rip. 20 years, retire, get a pension. You can't really retire. You still got to work, but it give you a little bit of money, regardless of where you're at in the world. You can be on the beach somewhere, as long as you get close to a post office, you can get a little bit of a income from that. That's the way I looked at it anyway as a young 18-year-old. And I had, a bunch of old timers always tell me, oh, I wish I wouldn't have gotten out 5 years ago. I would have retired by now and this and that. So I got tired of hearing that. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do 20. So did that, came in as a E1, which is the bottom lowest rank you could. Doesn't even have anything on the collar. It's blank, nothing. It's funny because I went after basic training, I went to the mess hall. And some sergeant saw me, and he thought I was being lazy and wasn't wearing rank, because you at least have something on there. And he's chewing me out for not having any rank. He's like, where's your rank, Private? I'm like, Sergeant, I ain't got no rank. And he looked at me like, oh. So I progressed through all those. Every one of them was able to make it and serve at every enlisted rank. Finished up at E9, Command Sergeant Major, which was a great honor and a privilege. So did that, have three kids, beautiful wife. The kids are all grown up and out of college now, so we're kind of in that stage of our life where we got to fill the gaps. At the same time, I retired, so running and ultra running became a huge part of my life. It filled a big void of not being in the military anymore with my brothers in arms and that stuff, and the kids growing up, and it's taken up that void, and it's been awesome ever since. And that kind of leads into Team RWB and what we'll talk about a little bit later, how we have a lot of veterans and such that get out. They're used to that op tempo and repetitive nature of getting up in the morning and doing PT with the guys, and it's structured, and then all of a sudden overnight it's gone, and then they kind of start snowballing and they stop moving and they start feeling sorry for themselves. So get a case of what we call the poor me's, and get a case of the poor me's, and that leads you down the road. Anyway, yeah, and that's where I got here, and it was great to meet you guys in several races. I think I've done 5 or 6 last man standings with you guys, and then we did Ball State together as well.
So when you first started running, were you doing short stuff, or did you just like, oh, there's these things called ultras, I'm going to do that?
I did my first marathon in 2004. I was in the Army 12, 13 years. And I thought, you know what? I was going to Fort Irwin, California, a good place to train. And talked my wife into doing a half marathon. She'll train for the half marathon when I do the marathon. So we did that kind of together. It was in Tucson, Arizona. And after doing that, I said, I'll never do one of these again. Never do one of these again. And then I just went back to doing my own normal running Army stuff. And it wasn't until I retired in 2015 And to fill that void, I started getting to run a little more, a little local, people got it. I actually started a park run called the Oak Grove Park Run right outside Fort Campbell, where we put on a 5K every Saturday free. And so we would do these 5Ks every Saturday, and that got me kind of running. And then that kind of led to Land Between the Lakes ain't very far from here. They got a race. Steve Durbin, who's trying to be a good friend of mine, another good race director, puts on his race there. And I did the 25K or something like that there. And then I said, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do our first ultra. And I signed up for the Music City Ultra, the one by John Harden down there. Before that, I had some time. So I saw LC Enduro on the calendar in February. Music City's in March. And I thought, let me just do this LC Enduro thing. And they're advertising just as a training run, see how I do. So I went there by myself, no crew, nothing, with no expectations, just not even expecting to get my first ultra that day. And had my supplies in the car in the parking lot. So I'd finish the loop and I'd run to the parking lot, do my thing, and run back out to the thing to get there in time. And it was funny because the winner, Stephen Cornhouse, you guys probably know who he is. He won that race, but every time I would run to the parking lot, I'd run by his all-star crew of like 6 or 7 people with all kinds of food and couches. And I was like, good Lord. And they were nice and they would offer me stuff, but it was just to run by him every single time, hurry up and fill my stuff and get out there, and was like, wow, this is pretty cool. But then opened my eyes and wow, you really should prepare for this better. But anyway, I ended up getting to the final 3 or 4 of us and ended up hitting 50 miles. And I remember thinking out there in that course, man, I just hit 50 miles. I was so freaking excited. I felt so damn happy about myself. First ultra, and I hit 50, and then so everything out was gravy. It was icing on the cake, so I didn't really have that killer instinct to win because I was just above the moon just to get over 50. Ended up doing one more lap because you never want to just do the even 50 or 100. Ended up doing 52, and it was super, super cool. Then I went to Music City Ultra a few weeks later, of course, and knocked that out. But it wouldn't be my first ultra, of course, because I knocked that out LC Enduro. So that was it. That was kind of the start. And then I had the bug from there.
Yeah, Elsie's just, it's getting ready to happen this weekend. It's so fun. It's just a cool race. You picked a really good one to start out with for a last man standing. So that's kind of
super cool. And they're all over it on Instagram and all that stuff too. And you guys,
it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite last person standings.
Yeah, you guys have both had great performances there. I know David's won it. So
yep.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I'll always like that one. When I get out of retirement from backyards one day, I'll come back and do that one.
Yeah, we got it. We talked about it before the show about maybe all 3 of us will not go there next year and do it.
I know that'd be fun. That would be fun.
See, I had a plan of going back this year, but my daughter's birthday is the 20th, and so her birthday party is this Saturday. So I could not miss her birthday party to go run.
Absolutely not.
That we tried to get it on the weekend before, have her birthday party, but it was already booked. So,
how old is she?
She'll be 7.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely can't miss that. You can miss a lot of things. You can't miss that.
You couldn't miss that.
No.
She's a runner too.
Yeah, she's a runner. She runs races. She runs 5Ks, 1 milers, and then we put on the dirt circuit. And she came out, ran the 3 hour. So she got like 6 miles.
Oh, heck yeah.
She's 6 years old.
Future cross country star.
Just smiling the whole time.
Oh, yeah. And she played basketball. So her basketball game actually got canceled for Saturday.
Dang.
Crazy.
Snowing, man.
Awesome.
No, they had a makeup game from last weekend because of sickness.
Yeah, that's been going around like crazy here too.
So Music City Trail Ultra.
Yeah.
Dude, I signed up my daughter for that race, not knowing what it was, because that's the race she wanted to do. She just picked one. So we done the 18 miler maybe?
Yes. Yeah, they got the 25K or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we do that first climb, and she just looks at me and she's like,
the first climb.
I thought you said this was going to be easy. I was like, well, the hardest part's out of the way. And then you see you get to the top of that first climb, and then you see the huge power line dip.
And that'll break your heart when she had to see that hill.
Dude, that's still one of like the most crazy views to see, like when you see that mountain, like that you got to go up. There is no running. It's just a line. and you're just locking up this thing straight up.
Yeah. How old was she when she did it, and what year was that?
11 or 12.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
She did it, and it was pouring down rain the whole time. And when she crossed the finish line, it was pure mud out there. And John said she was the youngest finisher they'd ever had. So he sent her,
super cool.
He sent her this award, so she still got it upstairs. It was kind of cool. But
it's so awesome.
You saying that just reminded me, like, we'll never forget that little power line climb. Like, it's just insane.
She'll never forget that either.
No.
Yeah. That's super cool. There's an interesting name that did one of the first couple of those Music City 50Ks. Everyone's heard of that guy, I think. So
he got the course. He's got the course record still, or does Bob got it?
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah, he might. I want to think he has second or third, but he might have it. It was like a 4:02 or something, maybe. That was before he was David, as we know.
It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not working, so we'll worry about it right now. So I got to ask you a question. So you did Music City Trail Ultra, and then you did The Last Man Standing at Elsie. Was there, between those two, did you learn anything? Did you have issues? Were you struggling, or did everything go pretty good?
Well, I did the Elsie was like in February before that, and then in the Music City Ultra. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. Well, I think I was so elated to get the 50-mile mark and get that first 50K out. I was super confident going to Music City. I would get that 50K, but it still was. I didn't do as great as I thought I would do on the Music City Ultra. It kind of kicked my butt, really, to be honest. It kind of caught up with me, and it was a good 2 or 3 weeks after, so I had plenty of time to prepare. But then again, I was brand new ultra runner, so 2 or 3 weeks after 50 miles, when you're just starting out as an ultra runner, it's probably way too.
Dude, you didn't make it 14 days.
Yeah. See, now we all laugh. We do that and we'd be fine. But when you're doing your first ultra, that was probably too aggressive.
I try not to do that now.
Right.
I still do that now.
Right.
And then, you do that, and then you find this one race that's, another local race that's a last man standing, but you do Mid-State Mile.
Oh, yeah. I did that before Kentucky last sold, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mid-State Mile with Becky and John.
I think everybody gets humbled by that race the very first time.
Oh, they sure do. I remember the first year I did it. Were you both at the first year too?
I was.
Okay. John Wright, of course, or Chad Wright won, of course. And I remember that year, I don't know if it's that way every year. It seems like both years I was there, these horse flies would come out of nowhere. And I remember Becca saying that they're not usually here, but for some reason during the race they're here. These big horse flies that would just land on your neck and your back, and I'd always run with the shirt on anyway, just because of that. But I remember at one point during the race, I get smacked in the back of the neck, and I'm thinking, what the hell? And it's Chad Wright. He just knocked the crap out of me in the back of the neck. It was a horse fly. It was about to take a bite out of me. So I'm like, hey, thanks, whoever you are.
Them suckers, Luke Boschwaller's back looked like he just got tested for all of his what you're allergic to, just lit up.
Yeah,
man, I forgot all about those horse flies.
Well, they've not been there the last 2 years.
Forgot about those horse flies.
Just because I'm running it this year, they'll be there.
Don't bring them back. Those things are awful.
I'm gonna get one of them sticky things and just put it on my head.
Yeah, they would literally take a bite out of you and lead you off. And that was. Remember, that was the same year that Luke had those shoes. Remember those super shoes?
Yeah, those Hokas.
I don't know if I'd call those super shoes. They were
they're not the super shoes as we think.
They were super something for him.
I remember they had like a hood coming out the back of them.
Yeah, they were like there's some big long thing, and it was crazy. That was nuts. But he did very well that year. I think he got over 100 or close.
Yeah, it was him and Chad Wright were the last two.
So
he did good.
Super.
But how was that for you?
Yeah, a very, very humbling race. That'll beat you before. And I don't think I ever went more than, I think my PR that was 44 or 48. It's not a whole ton of miles, but that is a tough, challenging. I mean, if you want to go find yourself, if you're an ultra runner out there listening, I know if you listen to this podcast, you've heard this before from these guys, but if you want to go find yourself in a short amount of time and get there quick, do Mid-State Mile, because you'll find yourself quick.
Yep, you sure will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially in that time of year.
Yes.
That's what makes it so hard. Because Elsie's, it's every bit as hard as mid, but the difference is it's cold.
I think you're absolutely right. And I was gonna do it the third year, but something called HOTS got in the way, and I went and did that in 2022. So that broke my string of mid states because HOTS came along at the same time. I just couldn't do both.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think 2 years ago, I was on my way back from Mid-State, and HOTS came through Sweetwater. And so I actually got to see these people come through here.
Super cool. Cool.
And that was the same year. That was the year we did Vol State.
Oh, 2023 then.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story. 2023.
Yep.
If I did it in 2022.
I met
even Mike's dad went out and crewed some people. He drove over to the interstate, I think, and set up a little spot.
For HOTS, that's pretty cool. Because HOTS is interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But it depends where you're at in the field because no one knows the course. So if you're in the top third of the field, you're selling the story to everybody.
Yeah.
And squaring away everyone behind you.
Yeah.
And by the time they come around, it's a little bit better for them. But
Yep.
Yeah, if you're up front, you're not getting much help unless someone's tracking that map and knows really well.
Dusty Young was tracking that when I think was it Bob? Yeah, Bob won it that year, right? Yeah. So Dusty was tracking that. I mean, he was just eyes on it. He's like, they're going to go here, they're going here, and so Dusty was on top on HOTS that year.
That's pretty cool. Trying to get a read on which way they were going.
Yep. He's doing all these scenarios. They going here. They're going up Dayton Mountain.
That's an epic race, and then Laz will throw everybody off by turning here or turning there, or being on top of a, city here. I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's you get the map the night before?
The night before, we got it very late in 2022. I remember I was in the hotel with Jamie Turner, he's a Stewart County buddy of mine. He's a super guy. He's running it this year, but we were rooming together, and we got it it might have been 21:30 or so at night that we got the map, and it was from Carl saying, "Hey, I know it's late, but here it is. We had to make some last minute tweaks," and so I didn't even bother even open it. I'm like, man, just got to get some focus on getting some sleep. I was a pre-po, it's just you're just wasting time if you open a map, I think, and spend 2 or 3 hours more of lost sleep trying to figure out what you're going to do. And as soon as the race starts, it goes to crap anyway.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, and I know the very start of that race was a brutal 30-miler from the get-go, desert from Frankfurt all the way to Lexington. I thought for sure I'd see a Dollar General or something, so I was going a little quicker than I should have been. Me and Jamie Turner and John Clark were all up there racing like it was a damn 50K, but not quite that fast. I'm exaggerating that, but still going too fast. And I remember running out of water, asking for from a crew of yard workers for something to drink. And the first couple guys just looked at me and didn't say nothing. And this young kid, like 17, was like, pulled something out of his cooler and big smile and handed it. He saved my race on the first day. Like I don't think I'd have made it past that day if he wouldn't have gave me water. And then getting into town, construction crew was there and a guy gave me some water. So right from the get-go in HOTS, hypervigilance sets in and you're just wired. I mean, it's just from the very get, it's just a trip.
Isn't that every race?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's always my plan. I have to sit here and tell myself, I'm like, okay, this pace,
yep,
this pace. 5 minutes into the race, I look down at my watch. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. Even on simple workouts, yeah, I know it.
And I've gotten better. I at least try to acknowledge it now, but it's and slow down. But I still start out too fast every time.
Yeah,
so it's just
so normal. You get the excitement of the race, and sometimes we start out our easy run days too fast too, just on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, it really depends. Like I used to, but now with the speed work and stuff that Mary has me do, like on the damn easy days, we're talking 9-10 minute miles. I'm just like,
yeah, and when you look at it now, we're starting to all learn. I think it's, is that's really the secret sauce is keeping yourself ready to go 100% hard on the hard runs, and focusing on what I'm getting ready to do in May has been more speed work for me. So I've been working with my coach doing the same kind of stuff on those days, trying to take it easy.
Yep.
For real.
So let's talk a little bit about just Vol State and those in general, and then we'll get to your your new news that's coming out here soon. But
they just broke the news.
How did you? So, what was the first year you did Vol State?
2023, I did Vol State. I did 2022. I did HOTS.
So you did HOTS before you did Vol State.
I did, and Laz likes to give me a hard time about that a little bit. He likes people to do Vol State first. It's not a requirement, but he likes to say that's the bachelor's degree. And then when you get your bachelor's degree, you use a master's degree, which is HOTS. And then the PhD, of course, is Third Circle of Hell, which is the whole reason why I did Vol State anyway, probably. Because I wasn't going to do Vol State, but then he made a requirement that, hey, if you want to participate in this Third Circle of Hell, which you got to have both, which that may be coming back. I talked to Steve Bourbon about it recently, but it all depends on you just got to have enough people that meet the criteria, and the criteria is you got to do one of each. So that's kind of why I did Vol State. But HOTS was first, and I know I kind of did it backwards, but it was awesome.
So so when did you in HOTS realize that it was going to be a long time?
Man, I knew that first night. I think, I went through the first 25, 30 miles fairly quickly, even though I had the water episodes getting into Lexington, and then that got to midday. And then the second 12 hours in between there is when I knew I was in for a long haul. There was the place, golly, little town where they have a hotel there that is kind of, forgot the name of it, but I managed to get this one room bed that was open at the Shriners Hotel, maybe. I can't remember what it was called, but I was able to get a quick shower and get like maybe 2 hours sleep, and then get right back on the road. I think I was 50 something miles or so, and then heading into town that next morning. I thought, wow, this is going to be a trip. This is going to be a while. How does the body respond to getting right back to going at it day after day after day, and the heat is just absolutely unbearable.
Yep.
So yeah, early on, I knew we were in for a long haul for that one. But it was different. It was like I didn't have too much time to think about, get the poor me's and think about this is going to be long, because the hypervigilance of, okay, am I going the right way? Am I going to get enough water? How long is this desert? Vol State, I don't think I had quite my why figured out in Vol State. I didn't quite have the hypervigilance for that, because I know there's some deserts and the water people kind of run out at times, but I had a sense of, I knew there was kind of like aid stations in a way every so many miles. I kind of knew that in the back of my mind. So I didn't have that hypervigilance hunger fire that I had in HOTS. Like HOTS, I did in 6 days something, further race than Vol State. In Vol State, I just did over 7. My performance in HOTS was much better, and that was because it was just the hypervigilance of just constantly being on guard and prepared, and being attacked by dogs once, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it was crazy. Coming out of Dunlop at 240-mile mark, I was feeling good. You starting to smell the barn. I was like 100 miles out or so. 3 dogs just decided to just come after me for like about a mile. And I always carry one pole with me in these journey runs. Sometimes it helps as a hiking pole. It collapses and goes in the back. I think Jeff Stafford actually does the same thing. But I just use one pole and use it, and then I always have it just because of damn dogs. They were on. They finally left me alone. But after I'd fallen down from swinging a couple times, they just would not leave me alone. I'm like, you guys, what are you doing? Get away! It's in the middle of nowhere.
Who is this homeless man out here with one trekking pole swinging
in the middle of nowhere? Nobody's
dogs. One trekking pole too, literally. Yeah, between Dunlop and Lookout Mountain, wherever that is, somewhere in the woods there.
I bet the people out there looking at look at that crazy dude swinging at them. Look at him. Look at him.
Well, it was middle of the night, but I don't so. Yeah, it was. I didn't see any houses. I don't know. I couldn't even figure out which house they belonged to, because it was literally, there was no houses around there.
Oh wow! I never had any dogs.
Yeah,
none.
No.
Not Vol State. No, there's the one they always talk about towards the end, where that aid station is, where that young fellow is with the water. Sometimes there's a pit bull there, but I think he's gone now. Kenny Z was talking about a dog, wasn't he, with you guys?
I think so.
I can't remember that.
But yeah, I never really. I mean, there was a couple dogs that barked, but never really had anything run towards me.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think the hots is there's more likelihood, maybe just because the route or is unknown and they're not used to seeing runners. Like maybe Vol State every year, maybe the dog knows that they're coming by, or I don't know.
Did you run with bottles or did you run with a bladder?
I ran with both. So I'd fill up my bladder and then right up front as well. And then I think at times I'd transition. I got to the point where my pack would fit the bigger water bottles you buy at a convenience store. I was able to kind of stuff them in there too, and stuff even the smaller ones in the back, because there was times I was really loading up on water. I mean, like at the end really had me nervous. And I know Chris talked about it in his podcast too. He talked about the thirstiest he had ever been. I don't know if you guys remember coming up Sand Mountain. But I think one of the things I think in that podcast he failed to mention was he came up Sand Mountain from the backside in Chattanooga. So he wasn't coming through Kimball. He had come 26, 27 miles from Chattanooga with nothing. There was no Kimball stop and check in and fill up. So he forgot to mention that. I told him that earlier today. I'm like, yeah, you were telling that. I forgot, but we came up from that backside. Anyway, that last stretch was absolutely brutal with that desert. And I remember getting to one point, I was out of water and I think I had 17 miles to go. I didn't even get to the part where you have to text Carl and say, hey, I'm at this. It was a fireworks stand. Call and text Carl here at this fireworks stand. I still had seemed like forever to go. And I was out of water. And there was this little fish market on the side of the road. It was obviously closed, but I saw a hose. It was a little raggedy hose. I'm wondering if it even worked. I turned it on and white flower water comes out. And I let it run for a little while. And I'm like, and it clears up maybe a little bit. And I'm like, I have no choice. I've got to drink water. I have no choice. Either my race ends now or I got to take a chance at this water. So I filled up my stuff, topped off on water. It tasted horrible. and then I kept going. I made it that fireworks stand and made it. But it was I left my pole there. I was 17 miles from the finish. I left that was the moment.
Oh, the lucky pole.
My mind was starting to go bad by then. I was like about a mile out. I realized I'd forgotten it. And there was no way in hell I was going.
No way, no.
Well, the good news is you got another one at home though, right?
I do. I got. You know what? That's the one I took to Vol State. That's exactly. Still got it. I don't think I really need to, because to be honest, when I do the dirt stuff, like I did Georgia Death Race earlier this year, I don't use poles. So I just need one pole for these crazy journey runs that Laz puts on. That's all I need it for. But we had talking about Chris again. Addison Hendricks is another guy you guys probably need to have on here. He's a trip. He won HOTS this year. But anyway, towards the end of that race, we were racing. We were 310 miles in that race, 350. We were racing, and it was fun. It was a good old time, and it was Chris and Addison and me. We're all pretty close together, and I remember Carl comes down the road in the car in the middle of the night. I think I was close to that fireworks stand I was talking about to calling him. And this Carl come down the road and he's kind of yelling at me like, hey, have you seen Addison? I'm like, what do you mean I've seen Addison? I have no freaking clue where Addison is. Addison Hendricks, who? So I guess they hadn't heard from him in like 6 hours and they were expecting him. He had gotten to the fireworks stand, which is like 7 miles out, to call so the Laz and Carl could get up from the Kimball Hotel, drive there and be prepared for the arrival. So he had done that. But then it'd been like 6-7 hours. He still he made it up Sand Mountain or made it to where he was. So everyone was worried about where he was at. Carl's running up and down the freeway looking for him. But we all wondered, when I got to the finish, he still hadn't resurfaced. I remember Laz saying, well, we'll have to call the authorities in the morning if we don't hear from him by daybreak. So they were kind of worried about him for a while. And then it turns out, Addison's a young man, 23 or so. He gets that when he's done, he's done. And so he said he had just found a ditch. We probably walked right by him. He found a ditch, and I think he said he slept in that ditch for 10 hours. You'll have to ask him when he comes on the podcast. But I think he slept for like 10 hours in the ditch, 5 miles from the finish. Done. Completely. Couldn't go another.
Well, I think we've all been there.
Yeah, but 5 miles, man, I'm figuring that out. I'm figuring that out.
Yeah, that's when you need like 2 caffeine pills and and a Snickers or something. Roll.
Yeah. He was pretty close to that fireworks station. I don't think that was the middle of the night, so I don't know. I think he was just done.
Yeah.
I think I finished at 02 in the morning, and old Chris Clemens finished like 01. He got me by an hour or so, but he kept looking around the whole time. I know he did. He told me. I was coming for him, but he got me. He edged me out. That was a lot of fun. We talk about that race and that finish a lot. And then Addison, of course, has a bright career still ahead of him. He went and won last year, probably the hardest hots so far. 64, 68 started, 17 finished. This year is going to be 400 miles or so. I was signed up for it, but there's a reason why I'm not going to be doing it. We're going to talk about it.
Yep.
And then you got Third Circle of Hell. You'll have to do it at some point if they bring it back.
That's true. Yeah. And that's always, now I think, we've always looked at Third Circles like the PhD, like last, but now the way he's making these hots harder and harder every year.
Yeah.
Kind of the last trend is, I think the last hots, for example, was hot. Those guys who finished Latch, they call it Third Circle of Hell, last annual Third Circle of Hell. I think they would say was harder than that. So I don't know where Latch goes from here.
I don't know.
That's a known route too. So
what do you think was the hardest part for you in the journey runs? Figuring out.
I think early on the first one, hots was my feet. I just didn't take care of my feet right, and I realized, and I should have known this from trial and error prior. I just didn't have, my shoes weren't big enough. I didn't go a half a size or full size up.
Goodness.
And I went with the Bondies, and they just chewed up. And Ball State was a little bit better because I had the bigger shoes. But with that asphalt hitting the ground at 130 degrees, like you guys know, probably on the surface, you're gonna have some sort of blisters, I would think, regardless of who. Because I had some in Ball State, just not as bad. But I know people are starting to experiment. And I think with hots this year, I run a lot of the topos, the athletic topos. I was going to run a trail shoe with that Vibram surface. I know Jerry Palmer did that, and it seemed to work real well because it holds up against that surface so much. But I think that will help for blisters a little bit too, just because the heat not as bad quickly going right through there because of the harder surface. But it was definitely the blisters because I thought on the day 3, I think of hots that I thought my race might be over because they were just shredded. And then it just got to the point where they're just going to hurt. I'm just going to have to go and just, oh well. And I just walked on them as painful as it was until it got so painful, the pain just wore out, I guess. I just didn't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Walt's story is still the craziest for me on the whole shoe thing.
I don't think I heard that one.
You've got to go back and listen to the Walt podcast. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But I will tell you this. Walt walked a good third of that race in sandals or socks.
Yeah.
Socks?
Socks.
That was the race we did too, 2023.
Yeah, you got to listen. That it's so funny to listen to what that because
I'm good to listen to it. How long ago did you guys have them on?
It's probably
last
been
year sometime.
It was fall last year, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Do that. Is he in the 20? Is he in this year's hots? I think he might be.
I don't know.
He's got to do.
He's on this. I'm sure he probably is. Anything at 200 miles or greater, I think he's trying.
If you look at that hots roster, that's an intriguing list. That's going to be a good one. You got Ken Zemak is in that race.
Okay.
John Clark is always a competitor, of course. Addison won it last year. John's won it. There's some other names in there too that are pretty intriguing. But I thought Walter was in there as well. Grant, the guy that just wrote the book, Grant McGowan, or I think is from Australia.
Oh yeah,
I think he's in it as well.
It's gonna be fun, man.
It is.
All along on that. That's one of the best things I think about Ball State and those races is just Laz reading his updates daily.
Yeah.
They're so good. Like
so good.
Yeah. He's really good at that. And you just never know what the hell he's going to say.
Yeah, and he just keeps doing it. It's like, wow, how does he keep putting out such great stuff with his writing? It's just amazing.
Yep. Walt's name is on the roster.
Is he really? That's awesome. Any other names pop out at you on that roster at a quick glance?
Yeah,
It's a good list.
Kimberly Dirts.
Danielle Flory.
Yes. The Florries are awesome, by the way. They're both in that race.
I said
She's
Danielle.
just,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Crystal Wheatley, the one that y'all finished. Tom.
She's
Yep.
doing it. Ariella Flory.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're both running it. They've done several of those, but
The Florries, the Florries,
Yeah, the
they
Florries.
did it last year. They came up a little bit short, but they've done some awesome stuff. You know, I think they even won Ball State one year, didn't they? Or came in second. They were up.
they were up there. I think they were near the podium.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
got
they were
That's pretty
Diane from up
Oh,
in our
looks
area.
like John Price is in there.
Yep.
Oh yeah, don't forget him.
That's right.
He's in every one.
So what was the hardest thing about HOTS in Vol State for you? And or either one. I mean, like, I guess I should say, what was the hardest thing about HOTS and what was the hardest thing about Vol State for you?
The hardest thing for HOTS for me was just the heat. I mean, just the heat, no question. I mean, it was just the middle of the day. You had to get out there in the daytime too. You couldn't just hide and sleep away the day because you'd run out of time. You had to do so much, 31 miles. You couldn't just say, hey, I'm only doing the night and I'm not doing any of the day. You got to get out there in some of the day. And that was it by far. I remember just finding a church, something to sit under and get a little bit of shade at like noon or 3 o'clock, and just unbearable. And then trying to find a hose. Sometimes you'd have to walk all the way around the church and get lucky to find a hose, or a fire department. You find a hose and you turn it on, you get some water. Some people, they just go right on by if they don't see a church, faucet out front. You got to walk all the way around that thing. And I did that a few times and it worked out. But it's no question the hardest thing on both of them is the heat. I think if you do those races like now, other than to storms, and you'd have to desitin your feet like crazy, it'd be way different. It'd be way different. The heat is just everything, I think, and plays such a toll.
Yeah.
And there's some techniques, Ken Zemak talks about his sauna protocol was just a big deal. Says that's the reason why he beat Bob Hearn that year, was because, Bob didn't do the sauna protocol, but he did. But he's not giving himself credit. He beat Bob because he was just better that year. But he's big deal on that sauna.
Yeah, he
sauna,
was.
big deal on it.
And Bob also ran HOTS.
Yeah, he did.
So like I'm not.
He sure did. Yeah.
So he, that
absolutely
that wears your body down too.
And I don't think Bob is in this year's HOTS.
He wasn't his name, no.
Yeah, maybe he can jump in or something.
Well, actually, to be honest, he told us on the podcast he only does a race one time.
Ken Z, that's right.
Oh yeah, Ken. Sorry.
Yeah. Ken's in it.
So
Ken does it only once. Yep.
That was interesting to hear him say, like, he only does a race one time.
Yeah, and I listened to the way he explained it to you guys, how he just goes for the experience. And I know he can win HOTS this year. If he puts his mind to it, I know he can win that thing. But it was interesting when he was talking to you guys, and I've talked to him a few times since then. He talks about the experience, and he wants to just have a good experience and enjoy. If he is in that mindset and just kind of is doing that, maybe he's not trying to get the top. But I don't know. He's very talented.
Yeah.
He can win HOTS for sure.
Yeah, he's got when you're talented and you're competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're a think tank person, which he obviously is. Like, he's going to spend time building a strategy. And it's funny, even listening to say, like, make the plan, but, you plan to plan, but then when the race gets here, it's whatever happens.
I got a Ken Zemak story I got to tell you, because I told it to Matt when we were doing the Last Man Standing. So I was his random roommate in Vol State. So I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. We paired up together because we didn't just send an email at the last saying, hey, I know this guy, like y'all did, and you paired up and you're roommates. I didn't really, I didn't do that. So I random draw. I get Ken Zemak, the guy winning the race. But we're sitting there getting ready, to go to bed, and we're going over our last minute stuff, our pack, and getting ready to lay down and go to sleep. And he's got 3 alcohol pads in his hand, and he takes the third one and he moves it over here and he moves it back, and he's doing this number back and forth, looking at it, and I'm looking at him like, Ken, what are you doing? He's like, and he throws it in the garbage, and he sticks the other 2 in his little pack he's taking. And he said, Zach, ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. I was like, this guy is analytical, like you would not believe. He weighs everything. I think he told you all that too.
Yep, he did.
Yep. Yeah, he told us the exact weight of his pack, which I don't remember what it was, but
and he said it.
Knew it.
I'm sure
he knew it.
I just remember my experience at Vol State, like day 2, might have been day 3. I can't remember, one of the two. I found a trash can and I was like, just throwing shit away left and right.
Good. Yeah. I never really quite had that problem. For some reason, I always packed light from the get-go. But I hear a lot of people doing that.
Yeah. It was, I had
way too much.
I had like a little can, just a tiny bottle of like pepper spray for a dog. And then I had an extra pair of underwear, extra pair of socks, which I thought was a great idea, that I would just swap them out. But they never dry because it's Tennessee humidity. So I just, all my expensive like running underwear and socks just went in a dumpster. And then there was a couple other things. I think I had a poncho. I threw that damn thing in the trash can. I was like,
you're gonna get soaked anyway, and it's usually 70 degrees and raining. So
and I was like, if it starts raining, I'll just go get one.
That's what I did.
You know, like that's the thing. You run by $4,000 generals.
4,000. This year there'll be 5,000.
Yeah.
And and then every now and then when you get to major city, you're at a Walmart.
That's right.
And that was the thing. It's like I finally figured out, like, when I finally made it to a town and I was going to shower, I would just go to the Walmart and I would buy anything I needed, and the rest of the stuff went in the trash can. I wouldn't carry it with me.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. No.
It was a learning curve, and like I only ran with 2 bottles.
Okay.
But every time we went into a gas station, I would buy 2 bottles.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So I actually would have my 2 and then the bottles, but my thought was there is I would throw it away as we were going in somebody's trash can, because you run by 4,000 trash cans on the way in too.
Yeah, you don't want to just throw your trash anywhere like someone did.
No, don't do that. But yeah, it was like, that seemed to work well because I would start out heavy and then just get lighter as we went further. But there was a few times where it got a little sketchy. I'd run out. But
I ran out once.
Yeah, I remember Matt telling me about that.
Ran out going to War Trace. It got me. And when they say that the Angel Station is right outside of an area is not a mile. Well, it's 7 miles according to what it actually was. So it got me.
That's Tennessee math, baby.
I think you got War Trace before me. I got to War Trace and it was just pouring buckets.
Oh yeah, it wasn't raining on me. I got there I got there early in the morning. I mean, probably 4 or 5 a.m. because the sun was coming up. We ran that whole stretch in the dark.
That's cool. You know,
I don't think there's anything worse than being extremely thirsty and standing beside a dead armadillo. Like, I just remember that. I was like, I'm thirsty. This thing smells like nothing I can explain. And I'm so thirsty.
What I did as I was walking, like when I ran out of water, I had 1 salt pack left. The BPN watermelon salt pack. And I ripped it up and I'm just licking as I'm walking. That's all I had. I'm like, I've got to keep getting this sodium in me because I have nothing else. So I'm like, and then I finally got to that, I don't know, that Angel Station up there, the big one in the yard, before Whispering, whatever it is, before the ball.
Oh, that campground or whatever they had up there.
Like
before that one,
Whispering
it was that,
Hollow?
Yeah,
something like that.
Something. But that they had their thing, and then they got destroyed when that storm came through.
So which one you talking about? Real big one. When I went through there, it was completely wiped out by.
Yep. We got to what was that town? Manchester. And the person that owned that, he called up to us and he's like, "Hey, we're the ones that had that. It's no longer there." And he showed us a picture. The storm got it. We're like, "Oh, sorry, dude." And he's like, we'll put a new one up.
Put a new one up. Yeah, that's funny. So the heat for me, definitely. What was the hardest thing for you guys? I know you've probably been asked that question before on this podcast. But
mine was my feet. I mean, the heat was awful, but I mean,
the feet.
The heat's what it is, but the feet, man, like once they went, I mean, it was just, I had a protocol. I'd get up and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to try to get my steps, so my feet would get used to that pain as I was going again.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to get the pain out of them.
Yep.
Numb them.
Yep.
And that's how you got to deal with it.
And then when it rained and there was puddles, hit the puddles because the water is so cold that it's numbing your feet and you don't feel the pain anymore.
Yeah.
Which is awful because all that water is just going to cause more blisters and cause more, but
Yeah, exactly.
it felt good.
Hell yeah.
For me, it was too much walking.
That's a good point. A lot of people do these things and they're surprised that you do a ton of walking. Bob Hearns even put out, I think every time he's walked more than 50% of the time, or like 52%. I think he's got it broken down.
Yeah, I didn't really have a good strategy. Is I was just going to run, and my plan was to run and sleep, get up and run, sleep. I ran most of the first day, slept, and then ran for a little while the second day, and then we noticed a lot of people were walking, so we were like, walk, run was what we started doing. That was a terrible strategy for me. I should have just kept running.
Yeah.
Because what it ended up doing that whole second day, we walked, ran, and I had pains that I normally don't have.
From the walking muscles that you have.
Yes, and like I couldn't get it to quit. We just kept pushing, not sleeping. So in day 3, I was the biggest crybaby you can possibly imagine. Like I was upset. I was mad. My goal was to be done in
that was like
3 days.
That was bench of despair day, probably right around that time, right? Halfway.
Yeah, I think
day
it
3
was right around there.
Somewhere. Yeah, that's a pretty cool little part of All-State too.
It was. Yeah, I think it was somewhere around in there. It was either right before that or right after that's when it went haywire.
Yeah.
But ended up sleeping 8 hours. Yeah, so it had to be after the bench of despair because that day it was hot as shit. I remember that because we made it to what's the people after bench of despair? It's the nice couple. Yeah. So we get to the nut house. It's like noon.
Awesome.
It's like, maybe noon. Instead of sleeping, we showered, ate, took off.
Yeah. And
by the end of that day, that's, I think, when shit fell apart. Like, because I got to the point, like, I was just so unhappy.
Yeah.
So unhappy. Yeah. And, my foot was hurting from all the walking. And finally,
you just don't have an end in sight yet. You can't, your brain, like Laz talks about, your brain can't get around the idea that you still got to go 170 more. You're not even halfway yet, or you're just around. The brain just can't get over that. It's not, for me, not until I got about 100 to go when I'm like, my brain could finally start thinking about it.
I wasn't even thinking about the end. I wasn't even to that point. Like, it was just, I was like about to quit. Like, that's where I was at. I was like, I hate this race. I'm never doing it again. But, I wasn't going to quit, but I needed to say it.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to say it.
Yeah.
But
some people just need to call the Jan, the meat wagon, and just get it out of their system. Then she takes forever to go get them, and by then they figured it out. But
yep,
that's so funny. But yeah, finally I was just like, we got to sleep. So we slept 8 hours.
Nice.
And I got up, and basically from that point on, I ran almost the rest of the race, and I ran.
Yeah. And without that 8 hours, you wouldn't have been able to do that. I hear people talk about, I love Chris, but he was talking about he had that 10-hour sleep, and man, I could have maybe shaved some time. Yeah, he could have, but he could have gone the other way. He could have cost him a day. That solid sleep, and Bev Abs talks about a lot. She says, when you get a chance to sleep in a hotel, that good quality sleep, it makes up for the time in droves compared to any other way to do it. So
next time,
8 hours.
If I ever run it again, I will just run, sleep 6 hours, run, sleep. We were like 2-3 hours in a hotel, and then we'd get up and go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like, it just didn't work, man. Like, and then I think that's what led to all the walking. And like, when I ran those last 2 days, no pain.
And look at how much time you made up from that. You might have slept 8 hours, but because I haven't done a journey run like that yet. I've been the 2 or 3 hour guy. I've never had one of those 6 to 10 hour sleeps. So yeah, I mean, and I hear guys from you talk about they get this and then they just go. I mean, I saw what you did going up at Sand Mountain. I know you said the storm was chasing your butt up there the whole time, but
no,
you were flying up that mountain.
I was in the storm.
Yeah, I know you were in the storm. You got one of the fastest times, if not the fastest time, going up that mountain.
I have the second fastest time on Strava.
Is Joshua Holmes the number one?
Yeah, and I'm like within a minute. Like I was booking it up that damn thing in that storm, dude.
But yeah,
I didn't even know that I had that. Like I didn't even know I was on there until I think it was you and Kim, maybe.
Kim and I think we're talking about it.
And then it came up, you tagged me. I think you tagged me and said David Compton sandbag, and I'm like, "Well, what is that?"
Yeah,
I was
cool.
all there was tree limbs falling. I mean, I was just like exposed going up Sand Mountain. Like it was awful, and I was just like, and then at that time, my girlfriend and my daughter drive by and they see me and they wave, and I'm just like, and I just look at them and I'm like this. I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah. Sand Mountain, yep.
But it was a fun experience. But I mean,
what y'all think of Cheese Grater Road at that time? You're almost done, but
I don't remember much about that whole day. I ran the whole last 30 miles at a 9-minute pace, probably.
Yeah. Wow, that's super good. That 8 hours sleep did you some good.
Yeah, it did. Well, this was the day. This was the day after the 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
But but like if it got me all the way through, but I was eating like crazy too, man. Like every time there was a gas station, I'd go in there and buy a Snickers bar and some chocolate milks. I was wearing chocolate milks out.
Yeah, chocolate milk is awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Calorie, sugar, man.
Yeah, it is. It is money. I like those Dirty Last Mans too.
So before we get into your new adventure, of all of your races on here, and it looks like you've got what? 31 races. 5 trophies, by the way. Congratulations. But of all those races, which one are you the most proud of?
You know, just because it's such an epic race, the race director, the uncertainty of success, it would have to be Hots 2022. It's just turned into one of those epic races that you're just so damn happy with the finish.
Did it make you nervous not having an actual route, considering you didn't do Vol State first?
No, it didn't actually. Didn't bother me because I knew I was going to get a GPX file. I had practiced with it. You get the GPX file, and you load that up, and boom, there it is. So that didn't even bother me not having a route. It bothers a lot of people because I don't really get into the whole recon of where I'm going to go. I kind of do it day by day, maybe even hour by hour at times it seems. But I don't sit there and try to track it out 2 or 3 days in advance. I kind of go. You know, if I see something 20 miles out, 10 miles out, or whatever, I'll kind of just go to that and work it that way, and then I'll deal with it. I don't got nothing for 27 miles here, and I'll just literally I won't look farther ahead than that. I'll just do it just one stop at a time. So not having a route didn't bother me. It bothers a lot of people. It didn't bother me a bit. Give me any anxiety.
I'm similar in a way. I don't read race descriptions. I don't read course descriptions.
Right.
I don't read. I mean.
Yeah, you're right.
Sometimes it's not the smartest decision. I will say that. Like if I would have read the course description before I signed up for Blood Rock, I may not have signed up for it.
Yeah, I heard about it.
But you know, sometimes it's nice just to not have that extra stress on you.
Yeah.
You know, you're already stressed about packing all your gels, packing all your hydration, your nutrition, your headlamps, all this other shit. Worrying about the terrain of the race, I mean, that's just something.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's always there. It's not going away.
I'm like, at this point, we've all done backyards. We've all done 100-milers.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
May not be the effort you wanted.
Yeah.
But, you know, you'll figure it out.
But yeah, Hots definitely was and I forgot to mention this earlier. The coolest thing, and it was my first journey run, first last race like this, is at the very end, you know, it was at 2 a.m, and there Laz is at the finish, waiting, just him and Carl. And he'll sit there, it's 2 a.m, he's tired. He'll sit there and he'll talk like he just woke up. He's excited. He wants to hear your story. He doesn't cheat you on time. I mean, it is just, you're sitting there with a legend, and you got this 30 minutes to however long you want with it, and you're just exhausted, but somehow you find the strength to just talk about your story just because it's so cool just sitting with one of the legends to talk about it. And then when that's all done, they won't let you drive, or they didn't let me drive. It was 2 a.m, and I hadn't spent the night at a hotel in a while. He ended up getting in my truck and driving me to the hotel, which is just like, it's that kind of surreal. That whole experience. But that was the coolest part of Hots, was the very end. Literally getting to BS with Laz for like 30 minutes, and Carl and stuff, and it was super cool. Super, super cool. A single day hard races, probably Georgia Death Race. I know there's harder races out there than that, but that was cool. I saw that and I thought, that'd be cool. I want to do that. So I went and did that. That was 2024. So I try to do big one BFG every year, big fitness goal. Team RWB, we'll talk about that. It has that thing where you do one big BFG every year. And so 2022 was hot. 2023 I did Vol State, and then Georgia Death Race was last year. And it should be one of those goals when you make it that is something that not given that you're going to be able to obtain. Like that you have a decent chance of failing this thing.
Yeah,
so,
I feel like that needs to be a goal every year.
That one goal. Yeah.
You should have something that scares you. You should have something that
Definitely.
you
exactly
that keeps you motivated, that keeps you hungry, but also just a little bit like, this may not go the way I want it.
Not sure I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are right on to something. Team RWB and them, it's a big deal. They call it the BFG, big fitness goal, or big. You can use F for a number of different words, but come up with one that scares you every single year, and they push that real hard to get every one of their members to come up with one big fitness goal that'll scare you a little bit, and there's a decent chance you're going to fail, and then you fail it, you just strap it on and do it again next year.
But the good thing about that, though, like when you find something that you decide to do that is out of your comfort zone, you train your ass off for it.
You have to.
That's the thing. It stays in your head that, like, if I'm going to do this, I've got to put the work in. And if you don't put the work in, you know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you almost train. I know I would for like Georgia Death Race and some of the Hots. I train out of fear. Like there'll be days I'm like, I'm training because I ain't going to fail. I do not want to fail this thing and have to deal with having to do it again next year. Now we all fail. Ultra running is all about, you're going to fail sometimes. I get that, but the training, like you mentioned, that fear of failure will drive you for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of people get hooked when they sign up for a 100-miler. Like they know they gotta, they may not run every day, but they're walking, they're running, they're doing something every day. And that's where the habit comes from. Like that's how it usually starts, is like you sign up for something that's going to scare you. Even if it's a marathon, it gets you off the couch and you're like, okay, I got to run every day. And then eventually it's like, okay, well now I'm a runner, because I've been doing it every day, training for this. So hell, let's sign up for something else. And without ever signing up for that one thing,
that's right.
What do you know what you're capable of? And when you finish that, now you got to find something a little bigger and a little scarier,
Yeah.
Exactly. And now you found something a little scarier. So why don't you tell us you're a little scary here?
Yeah, this is super cool, and I am extremely fired up about this, and honored and humbled to be a part of it. So, Team RWB, Red, White, and Blue, is a veterans organization supporting veterans. It's about the health and wellness of veterans. So, like I talked about early on in the show, we talked about how you get out of the military. Sometimes there's that hole for a lot of veterans that they need to fill. And sadly, some of them don't. It kind of snowballs into other things. We can talk about 22 soldiers, service members that commit suicide a day, and those kinds of things that can kind of snowball. And so one of the things Team RWB does is they sell the fact that veterans are a resource, they're an asset, they're value to a community. And the way they do that is they try to stress the health and wellness of the veterans to keep moving, get out there. So they created this organization where it links veterans together and other community members. 70% of the members are veterans, but 30% are people like you guys that are community members, family members. You don't have to necessarily be a veteran to be a member. In fact, you can join right after this show starts, teamrwb.com. You join it, it's for free. They send you a really cool tech shirt. It says RWB on it, really super cool shirt, and you can be part of it. So, and they're all about getting the soldier and the veteran out moving and getting them mixed in with other veterans and talking and able to create that bond that they had in that military, that it happens overnight, it's gone. And you're looking at yourself like, wow, what do I do now? So it's all about just keeping the veteran moving and healthy and not getting like a case of the poor me, as like I talked about earlier. You just got to keep fighting, got to keep driving on. Is what that led to is they had this what's called this Old Glory Ultra Relay. They would do, starting in 2014, they would kind of do it where they would link it from chapter to chapter all across the United States. It would start in different locations. Just for example, I think from one year they went from Seattle down to Florida. And they did it by linking, you'd run from Seattle chapter, for example, I'm just throwing out names, to Portland, Oregon, or, to their chapter. Then they would take the flag from there, Old Glory, and run it to the next chapter, on so on and so forth. So it'd be several thousand or so people that'll be running and connect the dots. Super cool. And so that now kind of evolved until this year. They had the bold idea of having 12 veterans starting in San Diego, running with Old Glory the entire time, and finish in Washington, D.C. It's going to start in the back of the USS Midway on May 2nd. A U.S. Navy SEAL team is going to show up and deliver the flag that we're going to be running with the entire time. We're going to have a big old ceremony. We're going to put that flag on there, and one of us 12 runners will be running the entire time until the finish on or about May 17th to May 20th, somewhere in there in Washington, D.C. The finish is a great story, too. It's the Global War on Terrorism memorial that they're making right now, and along with all the monuments. It's pretty close to the Jefferson Memorial, from what I understand. And all of us that were part of that Global War on Terrorism, I know I was in it for several deployments. It means a lot to a lot of us that are running this, where the finish is. So there's a lot of great stories that are happening as this goes along. And there's a lot of logistical challenges and a lot of problem sets that we're going to have to deal with. We'll just take it on like, we did when we were in the military. You take on, a problem and you solve it. We got a huge all-star crew of people that are taking care of us, the logistics. There's thousands of meals, all that. We're going to be well taken care of. It's just going to be about getting your runs in and preparing yourself for the next run over and over and recovery. And the way I'll break it down for you a little bit, because I know you're probably wondering. So there's 12 runners. We're all put into 4-person teams. So Team Red, which I'm on Team Red, will have 4 runners. White has 4 runners, and Team Blue has 4 runners. That makes 12. So when you divide up 24 hours in a day, that's 8 hours a day each of us are responsible for to run. So for Team Red, 4 runners, we have 8 hours. How we carve that up is up to us, and how we see fit. So for example, we're probably not going to run longer than an hour at a time. We'll probably be rotating out a lot from 30 to 45 minutes. Just, you want to kind of stay fresh. You want to stay moving, just keep that flag going as fast as you can, as long as you can, because day 7, day 8 is going to be a lot different than day 1. So, but it's really for every runner, if we were to do an equal amount, which we won't do equal amount, there'll be other people running slightly more, slightly less, but it's about 2 hours or 15 miles a day, keeping that flag moving for every runner. We got some exceptional athletes on this team. Some of the resumes, I'll just talk about one just real briefly, because he's done some of the last mans that you guys know of in the Tennessee area. Gavin Woody is one of them. He's a teammate of ours, and he's done 260 miles on a last man. Finished 3rd the one year that Johan and Courtney DeWalda were fighting for the win. That's what made Last Man Standing so big. I think it was 2017. He was 3rd that year. Unbelievable athlete. He's won like Bigfoot 200 like twice. So we got some really quality runners. We got 2 female runners that are absolutely outstanding. Lindsay's on our team. She ran 7 100-mile races last year. So, and we got a real roundabout bunch of runners. We got the ultra running background, which I kind of lean on. And we got some of the faster marathon, half marathon guys that are real fast, that really maybe haven't got the legs maybe for the long way out there, but we're building that up now. We got Zach Bitter, all people. Zach Bitter, I mean, come on. He's coaching a lot of these us. He's come on board to say, hey, whatever you guys want. He's given us our coaching plan, and he's on board with that. So that's huge. So, and then we got one guy that just recently biked, a couple thousand miles across Europe, that just, is coming from that. And he's going to be doing this run with us because he's a great athlete. So just all the runners are listed on the website. There's a little bio on them. You click on it. Maybe we can put it on the show notes afterwards. But incredible story with a lot more to come. And I am super excited about it. I mean, I wake up every day and I'm just like, wow, this is super cool. And running with that flag, you run a 7:30 pace, by yourself, you run it with that flag, that 7:30 pace will turn to 8:30 pretty quick.
Yeah.
Especially with the weather and all that. And so, and then you got to deal with, what if you have to pee? What if you have to, poop? With all those things. So there's a lot of great challenges, stuff that we're working on. We're going down to Arkansas here in just a few weeks as another team building event, and we're doing exactly that. Each team is going to rehearse for 8 hours with each other and do that. This will be the second team building event we've had. We do a lot of Zoom meetings, and we got a ton of great sponsors on board. I mean, this thing is big. It's bigger than I would even imagine, and it's awesome. And the director of Team RWB, he mentioned that America needs something like this right now. They need something where 12 veterans are coming across with the flag and showing how patriotic we are and all those things. So it's super excited about it.
So how many total miles is it?
It's over 3,000. I don't know the exact number, maybe 3,200, but it's over 3,000. The route is out. I think it's on the link that they just published. They went official with the press.
I saw the route, but I didn't know how many miles exactly it was.
I don't know. I think it's around 3,200, but I know it's over 3. They go through some pretty cool areas too. Like I know at one point they go through land between the lakes, which is where I'm at, and there's an FKT there that's 59 miles, and I got the unsupported time still. No one decided to go out and beat it. It's not very fast, but it's 59 miles unsupported, and it'll be cool to kind of run right through the center of that. And there's a lot of neat little things like that different runners have during this event that we'll be running through. We're going to be running through Nashville as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have people show up and hopefully run with you too to support you.
Yeah, super cool. My son's already talked about, Dad, when you got these come through here, I'm jumping aboard. I'm like, yeah, just do it. Let's get out there. So we'll have, like I said, going through cities, we're gonna have police escorts and things like that. And
you do got some pretty good. You got some good supplement sponsors. First,
yeah,
Redcon, Raw, pretty good.
So y'all are doing 3 teams. Each team is its own relay, kind of.
Yeah, the flag's just one flag going the entire time. We're all on one team of 12, but we have 3 sub-teams.
Yeah, but all 3 teams are going to run the whole thing, right? Like
Yes.
But you're just running, your team is going to run it as a relay as like what? Red's going to run their own so y'all are running together like that?
No, one runner at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, one runner at a time.
One runner at a time. There's never more than one runner at a time. Only one runner at a time. So like my team Red has 4 runners. We have 8 hours. So, for example, let's say I run the first 30.
All 3 teams are rotating 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
Yes.
Got you. I'm with you. Now
that's
good. That's what I was trying to figure out at first. Maybe I just missed that. But when you said it, I was like, so is all 3 teams running it together as 3 different teams?
Yeah, I've had a couple of people ask me that same thing. That's common to kind of think that. But yeah, it's just one person running at a time from each team, just not 3, not 12.
Cool. You guys should be able to roll that pretty fast that way.
Yeah, and the intent is to establish a world record. That's the plan. No one's ever quite done anything like this before, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to set the world record for the fastest that 12 people have ever run across the United States with Old Glory, and then hopefully that'll lead into some other teams to take a look and say, hey, I want to take a shot. Let me get 12 runners together and the resources and put that together and hold Old Glory, and let's take a go at this. So we're serious, but we want to make it as fast as we can.
Yeah, that's cool.
And there's challenges too. I mean, if a runner gets hurt, 2 runners get hurt, you're down to 10. We don't have it set up to replace right now. At least that's the plan that we last talked about. It could be 15 days, could turn to 20 real quick if you're not careful with injuries and things like that.
Yeah. Especially if you start picking up other runners' time, and you start running more and more and more.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really
What is your training looking like for that? So are you doing a lot of base miles or?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that. I have a coach. About 18 months ago, I got a coach named Paul Dewitt. He's actually won Leadville twice. He's about my age. He lives in North Carolina, and best move I ever made about 18 months ago. I mean, Coach Zack can only coach Zack for a certain point. And I think it gets to a point now when you get someone some outside ears and eyes and and a voice that could write your schedule up and give it to you, and then you just, and look at you from afar. Huge difference. And it's made a huge difference for me. He got me ready through Georgia Death Race. He got me ready, for Vol State. I mean, it's just been having a coach. I just can't say enough how awesome that is. I mean, he writes them out in 2-week increments. I always have 1 to 2 speed works a week. We get the long run Sundays. He believes in the 80-20 philosophy with 80% easy, 20% hard. We have increased the speed work, quite a bit because, that's mostly what we're going to be doing. So, for example, I think this last weekend we dialed up a rehearsal on my own. So I had 4 30-minute, 7:30 pace, kind of back to back to back to back kind of deal until that 8-hour within an 8-hour window. And then just to test that the very next morning when my legs are still tired, let's just do 2 more at 7:30 pace. So I did 6 or so in that little window. And for me, 7:30 is not my easy pace. It might be yours, David, but I mean, that's a little bit faster. That's faster than my easy pace. So that was almost like 6 speed sessions in a way for me. Not quite, but it's challenging and it's awesome. But we're getting better and we're getting stronger. Another thing he does in the coaching is doing a bunch of different races. I'm an ultra runner at heart and I love them, but I like racing anything. Like we went down for Christmas down to Arizona. My son graduated from ASU. The big guy we were talking about before the show, 6'4", 240. He ran 81 miles at Mad Ultra for the first time. But super cool.
That's awesome.
We went to graduation and we did a 10K race. And I just love racing. No matter where I'm at in the pack, 10th racing for 9th, 3rd running for 2nd, 30th running for 29th. I love that. I like the fact that I'm chasing someone and he's peeking back at me. I like it when they're peeking. So I had this one guy I finally ended up catching. He was a younger guy, and it's a lot of fun because I want that younger guy to think, man, I am never going to let that happen again. That old man beat me. That shall never happen again. And maybe he'll get better from it and learn from it. But anyway, so speed work and moving faster and all those things is something I've been working on the last.
Good for you.
Ready for this thing.
80-20 rule is that's like the guideline anymore. Like used to people go out and do speed work all the time, and then that book came out. I remember reading that book and I was like,
yeah.
That does sound like something that I should probably try.
Instead of 20-80, you were probably doing 20.
I mean, when you first start running, you don't know any better. And you're just like, I'm going to go run a 7-minute pace or 8-minute pace. And you run like 4 miles. And like when you first start out, you should not be running that pace, period.
Unless you think you can improve every day when you first start out.
Yeah.
You literally think go out there. You're trying to beat yesterday's run every day.
Yep.
And I can't say, I don't get on Strava a lot anymore, but used to, and I still get on there some, and I'll look and someone will say easy run. And then it says 7:30 pace. And I'm like, that's not an easy run, man. Like you didn't do anything good there. Like,
I know.
Nothing.
I know.
Unless that's just for your Strava, like if that's it's like Facebook. It's like you make the good post, and it's like, I would rather you just say like, I pushed it.
And I see it all the time with that easy run 7:50 and 6:30.
I know. And then you scroll down, the heart rate's like 170. And I'm like, that's not easy. That's not easy.
Yeah, no, it's not easy.
But to each their own, we all have to learn. I learned the hard way. I did the exact same thing. So I'm just sitting here like, saying that, but that's because I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it's younger guys, and they're gonna, or younger to the sport anyway. They might be our age, but younger to the sport, and they're gonna figure it out the same way.
And honestly, the smartest thing you can do if you want to become a runner is get a coach immediately.
For sure.
I did not do that. Like, just get a coach immediately and learn. And then, if you're with a coach for a few years and you want to do it by yourself, at least you've learned the structure. Some people need a coach. Some people need a coach because they don't want to write their own schedule. And I totally get that. There's a lot of coaches that don't want to write their own schedule, so they have a coach, It
is. Best thing I ever did in my running deal was get a coach.
You learn so much. And you also have the voice of reason to say, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I would have saved myself a lot of heartburn if I would have done that at the very beginning, because like I spent years just doing my own thing and like Hell, I mean, the first 2 years, Zach, I ain't even run in the winter. Like, I was like, it's too cold. I'm not going to run. So what I'll do is just sign up for racing like February or March, be like, 50 miler, let's go.
Oh,
And
I
it would
love
be
it.
the worst race ever.
Oh.
But I would, and then as the year got longer, I would get better. And then by the time winter got here, I'd be like, done. It's cold.
No, you're right. That whole weather thing is kind of a new runner thing too. You hear people at work or coworkers, they're always talking about the weather. One of the things I made up in my mind several years ago was it doesn't matter. If it's on my schedule, I'm doing it. The only time I don't is when my wife tells me there's a tornado watch and she physically won't let me. But other than that, I'm running. Don't matter how hot it is. 2 degrees this morning, I was out there in the snow running. I mean, it's just what it is. I just don't let the weather dictate my running schedule anymore.
Yeah.
But it's a rookie thing, though. You do that early on for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of it's, you have to learn somehow. And that's the thing. It's like, it goes all the way back to that very, very conversation we were having, which is sign up for something that you don't feel comfortable. Yeah. And then you're going to learn. You may learn the hard way. You don't necessarily have to have a coach. Some people don't have the money to get a coach. Some people would rather get on there and learn it themselves, which is cool too.
Yeah, because you learn things the hard way.
But if you have a coach, more than likely you're going to skip a few of the steps that we all had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and if you're in position to get a coach, anyone out there's listening that wants a coach, don't just go to the first thing that's said. I literally talked to people. I had like 4 or 5. I wrote down. I interviewed them. It's a big business. It's a business out there that's crowded. You can find the coach you want. So interview some people, write down some questions. I talked to several of them before I decided on Paul Dewitt, which is the Leadville 2-time winner that coached Ken Zemak to the Vol State win.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like a pair of shoes. You need to find the coach that fits you.
Exactly. And I think that was a big thing. I got lucky with Paul the first time because we think on the same wavelength. I like a guy he's about my age. So we think a lot alike. The fit is perfect. So.
Yeah. Cause everybody's different, like everybody wants something different to motivate them, and how the coach talks to them, how the coach writes their plans, and you'll eventually, don't be scared to try one though.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can always change. You're paying them for a service, so you can always
always change. Yeah.
Man, you sure would skip a lot of the heartburn that we all had to face, and if I could go back and do it again, I would have started with a coach because all I did was hold myself back because I trained completely wrong.
Coach David can only coach David so far.
Yeah. And what's funny is I just finished that, I've been doing my coaching running certification, and I just finished it. And as I'm reading this thing, it's so funny. I'm just sitting here reading, and I'm like, oh, that's why Mary told me that. Oh, that's why I felt like that. Shit.
I love it.
And it's just like I'm sitting here.
How long have you had Mary?
Geez. 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. I've had Paul about 8 months. Matt, what about you? Are you using a coach?
Mary was the one I was using for all my marathon training everything last year.
Nice.
But it's you learn so much, and that's the thing. It's like, for me, it is learning. I just want to learn. So like now I've finished the coaching certification. I'm actually going through and getting my nutrition certification. So I'm just trying to learn all of this stuff. And I've not been on social media and stuff a lot because of it, because like every morning I get up at like 5 and I'm reading. Every night I'm reading.
I love it. And
but for me, that's so fun. I'm learning, and I think it's good to know because it helps me with understanding why things are doing. And, if it helps me to learn something, then I'm all for it.
All for it. And, and a big part of coaching, which I know you've already finding out about, is you get a coach. Thankfully I got one that does a lot of variety. He mixes it up with his speed workouts. I'm never doing the same speed workout. And he also figured out a way to get me on the treadmill and convince me that times that's absolutely awesome and necessary. Control speed. It does certain things you can't quite do on flat ground or hilly grounds. We don't do it often, but once every 2 weeks, maybe I'll have a great treadmill workout that'll get me, I'll be finished. But It's just that all that different variety, and he does his long runs different. It's just he's always just tweaking it just enough to keep my brain interested and moving. And I like it when I have a 3 or 4 hour run, but he breaks it down into certain zones where I'm constantly looking at the watch, so my mind's thinking, this and that, and then before you know it, the 3 hour long run, 4 hour is over with. So variety.
And I'll tell you the most interesting thing that to me I didn't really understand, because I don't sit and study. Like when Mary writes me something, I just do it. Like that's the great thing about having a coach. I wake up when it is time for my run. That's when I look at my run. It's not like something I look at for the whole week. Literally, she laughs at me sometimes. She's like, "Do you got to run today?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Let me look."
That's
Yeah.
serious. Yeah.
But one of the most interesting things to me that I didn't really truly understand until I'd done this run coaching certification was the blocks and how everything's done in almost like a 4-week block. And I've noticed sometimes, like she was writing my plans and my mileage would go up and then it would go down. Then it would go up and then it would go down. And then it would go up and then it would go down.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing those because every time it goes down, that is when the adaptation happens with your body. That is truly when you gain the fitness. It's not those 3 weeks that you're running all those mileage. You're stacking mileage each week. And on that recovery week, that 4th or 5th week, whenever your coach does it, that is when your body takes the adaptation. And then you start taking your mileage back up. So that's why it's doing a wave. You're like, and without ever doing that, you never get that benefit.
Yeah, you're stuck in that gray zone.
So now I understand, like when people are like, I just need miles.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like if you don't ever take that week off, it's not really a week off, but it's called a down week.
Yeah.
A deload week.
Deload week, the weightlifters call it.
But without that week, you don't give your body that time to make that adaptation to get that benefit. Like that stuff's been fun for me to learn and see and be like,
super cool. Yeah. And I'm seeing my coach as well, because he does that same model you're talking about.
Yeah.
Same.
So, it's been fun. It's been a learning experience for me, and it's been good now, because now, like when she writes stuff, I'm like, oh, I see
know what she's talking about. I love
Zach,
it.
Let's switch gears just one last minute here and get to some questions. But before I do that, is there a way that we can follow your run across the U.S.? Like, is there going to be a website, a tracking link? Is there something where we can follow this along?
Yeah, there's going to be, and they're almost done with it. TeamRWB.com, and they just did a press release today. And like you said, it has the route and those things. But as we get closer, they're going to have the actual, beacon, if you will, that moves along the route as it goes. So a person will be able to go on that link, map, and they'll see the flag, virtually moving, the entire time across their screen. So they'll know exactly where we're at.
When you get that link, send it to us, and we'll make sure we put it in the podcast show notes.
I will. Yep, I will, because they're going to put a little GPS tracker on the flag.
Cool.
Yeah, we would like to be able to share that GPS or that website, whatever that link is that you share. We can add it into the website, and then we can put it on the East Coast Adventures page too.
Perfect. That'll be awesome.
Yeah,
super
dude. It's really cool. I'm glad we get to talk to you about this experience, and we'll have to get you on after you finish it and let you share the whole experience with us. Or maybe we could have a couple of you and your teammates. That would be really fun.
It would be super cool.
Yeah, maybe we do that. But let's jump into some questions now. And when you get that link, share it with us, and we'll get it shared on here. But the very first question that we ask everybody, and then we'll turn it over to Matt, and he can hammer through the listener questions. Yep. But the very first question is, why do you run? Like when everything's so hard and everything's in life is hard, you're running out of time. You don't always have the time to do the things you do, but we always still run. What is your why?
It keeps the demons back, to be honest. I mean, I know that, it does. It really, for me, I look at it like this, and my wife knows this, my family knows this. When I get my run in, an hour to whatever it is for the day, when we go on vacation, it's a long run. I still do that. I think it's still important to keep a routine when you're on vacation, because for me, it helps me so much mentally. So it's really mentally is the main reason. Physically is the side benefit I get, but the big thing is for me is my mentals. So I get my run in, and that's like medicine. That's enough potion to last me, let's say, 8 to 12 hours. As that it starts getting closer to, I haven't run in 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever that limit is, it starts getting it running out. My mental start, not doing so good. And so it's a constant. I take the potion, I take the medicine from running that gets me, and it's repeat, and it works successfully for me. Like even on a rest day, a scheduled rest day, I think it's about one or so a week where I have it set up that way. Like it's usually on Sundays for me. That's the day I usually choose to do it. It's struggle sometimes. Just on a day where I'm not running, I have to go walk around the yard. I'm fortunate. I got 20 acres out here in Indian Mountain, and I got my dogs and German Shepherds. We'll go down the creek and we'll spend time outside. And I got trees and I got my tractor and I got a lot of things to stay busy with and planting them. But I got to stay busy. So on my off day, a lot of times I do a lot of my get on the bush hog tractor and stay busy. But it's the why for me, David, to answer you, is definitely for the mentals and the physical benefits I get are just a bonus, because I do it for the mentals first and foremost, not in close.
Knock them demons down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just gotta keep them back.
It's like the dogs. So do you keep your demons knocked down with that trek pole too?
You got the walking stick out there.
I don't know what's going to happen when we lose that other trek pole.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Mr. Williams, it is your turn, sir.
All right, we've only got a few questions here. The first one is, what shoes did you wear during Vol State?
I used the Hokas. Both years I wore the Hoka Edge.
Hoka Edge.
And I don't think I do it anymore. It was a Hoka Edge. It was kind of like, it's a Clifton that was a little bit wider foot. The Edge was. But I wouldn't do that anymore if ever asked that question's looking for advice. I mean, they were fine. I got me through it. They went in the dumpster as soon as I'm done because they were almost melted. They were decent. I mean, they were okay. But if I was to do another journeyman, which I'm going to do one, I want to do HOTS next year, because I was signed up for HOTS this year. The only reason why I'm not is because I got the privilege of a lifetime to carry the flag across the United States. I was signed up for HOTS. I had to tell them I couldn't, but I would be using a shoe with a trail running Vibram sole type is what I would do without a doubt. Topo Athletic has the Ultra Adventure shoe, which has a Vibram. That's the one I was planning on using this year if I was going to do it. Just because that concrete and that heat just shred shoes.
So is that what you're using for your run with Team WRB?
I'm glad you asked that. Because the weather is going to be May. So parts of the country ain't blazing hot. When we go through Nashville, it'll be, May 15th in Nashville. Sometimes it could be 50. Sometimes it could be 90.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But that's a great question. I'm using a different variety. I'm using Topo. They got a shoe called Atmos. They got a new one called Acuna. I still like the Hoka Clifton. I'm going to bring those with me. But I'm also going to be running the Nike Super Shoes. I've run in those a few times for 10K. And I love those things. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I tell this to my son, who hasn't run in them yet. I beat him in that 10K, by the way. But he's 240 pounds. I barely beat him. But he didn't have super shoes. But I think there's a 10% return on those things. It almost seems like when you're going fast at your limit, that they're giving you energy back into your body to go even faster. I mean, it's a real deal. It's like a 10% return, I think. I'll have to ask you guys' opinion on that. But so I'm going to have 2 pairs of super shoes. They're still in the box. I haven't opened them yet. I'm bringing them with me. I'm bringing Hoka Cliftons with me, and I'm bringing a Topo Athletic Atmos with me. Those are the 4 shoes I'm having.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a variety of shoes, because you never know what problem you're going to have. If you change shoes, you can change that hot spot up where it's hitting at. The super shoes are smart too. I mean, because the thing about it is you get the energy. You're going to get the energy return from that plate, and that may help your foot a little bit too. Like if it starts getting sore, because it doesn't have to work as hard when you're getting that energy return. You just can't run in them for a long time.
How many laps did you wear those at Mad?
3 laps, I think, 3 or 4. I was wanting to do them more, but the kind of gravel was maybe messing them up a little bit. Have you seen them that sometimes rocks get stuck in them a little easier because they're designed for the road? So I wanted to lead 1 lap, and that one guy up front was going crazy fast. Like,
he was
last
flying.
for like 80 miles he did this. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But I wanted to lead 1 lap, and I damn near had to race him for it. But I put on the super shoes and got that one. But I think, it was 3 or 4 laps, but I was planning on doing it even longer just because they do feel pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be that one day or so out of like 3 or so during this relay that I think that 7:30 pace might be like really, really hard, and I'll put on the Hoken Clifton recovery type or a Bondi, one of those, the Topos Atmos that has more of a cushioning, just to kind of get a little bit more recovery from it.
I mean, I use New Balance super shoes, the Elites, and
Super
Yeti 50 last year. I mean, I ran the whole 50 miles in them.
wow, and they felt great.
They were great. I was going to do the 100 miler in them, but the flood hit and we didn't get to test that. So I'll get to test that.
I think they're saying, yeah. I think they're saying, people say they last 150, 200 miles. I think on this one pair, I got like 60 miles on them or so, and there's just some wear already a little bit, but they still feel really good. But I'm going to bring two pairs.
I think the plate I mean, you can still run in them.
Yeah.
You just don't get the energy return because the plate starts wearing out about after 100 miles. It's just not.
Okay.
You can still run just fine.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get the same return because that plate's only designed to go 100, maybe 200 at max. Yeah. But I mean, 100 miles is about what they say.
And I think the sweet spot is like 30, 40 when they're ready to go. I'm bringing the Nike Vaporfly and Nike Alpha Fly. Those are the two I'm bringing.
I think it's a smart idea. I mean, if you're running that many miles.
Yeah, there's a few other teammates that are going to be doing the same thing.
And sometimes, man, just having something that makes you smile, like to put on them shoes, to be like, fast. You know, like that's the difference. Is like when even your ice cream's too cold out there, you can put on a nice pair of shoes and be like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, they're called super. Super is a super word. I mean, they feel good.
Fast.
I'm putting on shoes. It does something mentally.
Hey, when I put my fast shoes on, I'm like, I am fast. Even when I ain't fast, I feel fast.
About what you do yourself.
Yeah, you put them on, you're like, okay, because you get your normal training shoes, and then you're like, I'm putting on my fast shoes today. We are going fast.
And it's real. We know the sport is a big part is mental. So.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. The next question is, what was harder, Vol State or Georgia Death Race?
That's kind of a tough one because one of them's a under 24 hours or so race, and the other one's a multi-day race. You know, believe it or not, Vol State kicked my butt just because my why wasn't quite right. It just wasn't. Because I had already done HOTS, and HOTS is the harder race, per se. But really, I don't think it's harder if you look at it in terms of what gets you to the finish. And HOTS was easier in the fact that I was so hypervigilant, it made me, stay, hungry the whole time. And that actually, in hindsight, actually helped me more than Vol State. And Vol State, I was kind of like, I've already done HOTS. Everyone keeps talking about this, buffet of aid stations along the route, which there is, but there ain't. And so, yeah, that's a really hard one because they're both so different race. They're so different. It's hard to compare. I didn't want to mess up either one of them. I tell you that much because it could happen with a mistake. They're both manageable. I think if you train right, the Georgia Death Race, I think focused on elevation. Coach Paul and I worked on that. We were able to get, do a lot of those runs on the weekends, and it got me ready to go. Georgia Death Race was good. It was a good race. I mean, I might even do that one again just because it was fun and a beautiful area and Amicalola Falls and all. It was a good time. I like that race, and it's challenging. It's not easy, you got to work. And Vol State is just an entirely different race. I can't compare them. One's under 24 hours. The other one's it could be 10.
Yep.
A lot more risk in Vol State.
Yeah. I mean, you could be out of that race quickly. Versus
the heat alone.
Yeah.
Makes it a challenge that is way different than Georgia Death Race.
Yeah. You asked me earlier my number one thing, and I said it was the heat for those for sure.
Out there cooking armadillos, baby.
Cooking armadillos.
Armadillos are all the dead deer.
Yeah. Oof.
My last question is, did you chafe any, and did you use salty britches?
I didn't use salty britches. I used Desitin. I've always used that, the clear stuff, not the white stuff. And no, I didn't chafe because I was super disciplined in that regard. Like I put that stuff everywhere. And when I say everywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we ain't shy about that in this sport. We put that stuff on all our parts, our toes. I go crazy on those things at Desitin. I didn't run out, and I think I did once. I bought some at Dollar General. Yeah, no, the chafing was good because I used it liberally, nonstop. I mean, that's one thing I didn't mess around with because I've had chafing before, and that'll get you out quick. I mean, you can't, that's just nuts. And it's a self-induced, penalty that you're doing to yourself.
Yep.
You shouldn't do to yourself. That's an easy one.
You saying that reminded me of this was the first time I've ever experienced this, and it was at Vol State. And it wasn't chafing. Luckily, I didn't have any issues there. I did go through all of my salty britches and end up having to use KY jelly.
I remember
at Walmart.
Mary told you to go to Walmart.
That stuff makes you feel fast for about 10 minutes.
Smooth glide.
But man, I had heat rash.
Oh, yeah.
Down one whole side of my waist, like all the, and it was this other side, but like all the way across this.
Kind of bumpy.
Yeah, and I couldn't get it to go away. So it was the dumbest. It was dumb, but it worked. It was not great afterwards, but I ended up just taking KT tape and covering it up, and it did not bother me the rest of the time. But when I peeled that shit off, my gosh, like, because it had been on there for days at this point, like when I finally finished the race and I went to peel that off, man, it was awful. But the KT tape actually, during the run, it did not bother at all because it kept anything from rubbing it. But that was all I could figure out. Like, I was like, hell, I got KT tape. So I just put it on there and like it went away as far as but it made it worse when I took it off. Like it had grown, like all that sticky. Oh, it was awful.
You know what? Speaking of that real quick, I know we're getting close to time, but the shoes, did you guys cut up your shoes at the end like everybody seems to?
No.
Like I had no feet problems.
Wow.
I think I might have had one blister, maybe.
Wow. Are they bigger than normal?
No, it was just my normal. I generally don't have a lot of feet problems.
What shoes do you wear for Vol State? What shoes?
It's funny. Me and Walt had the same shoes.
Yep.
And they did not work for Walt, but I ran in the New Balance Fresh Foam.
Oh, I had those before.
The biggest Fresh Foam. I don't remember what they're called now. The Fresh Foam X More.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm not kidding. They're like 3 inches of just pure foam.
You must have had some good size on them where you swelled up a little bit and they were able to deal with that.
Yeah, but I didn't. Mike and Matt, man, they had terrible feet problems.
I even went up a wide shoe and a half a size bigger, and those Hoka Bondis are pitiful.
Yeah.
That's what I wore.
Yeah, I know.
And they're
pitiful. But that's the thing. It's like, just like Walt. He ran in we had the exact same shoe, even same color.
Isn't that crazy?
And he ended up barefoot on the side of the road, but that's just why I say, like, the same pair of shoes don't work for every runner. The same coach doesn't work for every runner. The same nutrition doesn't work for every runner.
Vol State page, everyone always asks, and I don't blame them, they're rookies, but they ask, what shoe should I wear?
Yeah.
That's an impossible question, really, because it's so, what worked for you didn't work for Walt. What worked for one guy didn't work for Matt. If Matt was to run one of these again, he'll probably tell us, but maybe you do a trail shoe. I know I would.
I'm never wearing the Bondis again, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Wow. So do you have any last questions for us, Zach?
I'm super excited. What's your guys' next race? What do you guys each do?
I've got an 11-miler Sunday if I can recover over this little stupid cold that I've had for 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
And then after that, I got 30K. Is that what that is? Whitestone 30K. And then 100-miler. And then Knoxville Marathon.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do Chattanooga half just as a little tune-up run for the pistol. So I'm either doing the 100K or 100-miler, trying to figure that one out. Then I have one of Yeti's races in April. Shallow? I don't know. Something hollow. I can't remember what it's called. Something hollow.
27th.
It's a 50K. Then
I got Mid-State too.
Got Mid-State.
I've got Yeti 100 and No Business 100. I think that might be it for now. But that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, that's super cool. I really haven't gone that much far because I am so focused on this run across the United States with.
Yeah, dude. It might take you a little while to recover from that one.
It might. My mind is just ultra concentrated on this. I can't really even think about another race until this one's over. Then I'll grab something late in the year that'll be fun. Who knows what it'll be. Something cool. But I enjoy being on here so much, you guys. Happy 7th birthday to your daughter, Matt.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure being on.
And then I got my daughter's birthday and then my wife's birthday. Back to back.
Back to back.
They got 20th.
Oh my goodness, that's money. That's perfect.
I told her she could have held on just a little longer. They could have had the same day, but
Perfect. That's the month you work 2-3 different jobs every year, and then you're
yeah. We got Valentine's Day and 2 birthdays. We're out there back to back.
Oh, I love it.
Troublesome Hollow.
There it is.
Man, I had to look it up.
I can remember
I forget
that
it every
race's
time.
name.
I want to call it Duncan Hollow,
I'm gonna call it
but that's the aid station at no business.
Steel Hollow, but that's not it either. So
Well, we can't wait to follow along with yours. That's going to be super cool.
Yes,
Can't
sir.
wait to see it. Then once you finish, I'll reach out to you and we'll get you and some of your
Yeah, I'll
teams
bring them
here.
on.
Yeah, we'll have fun.
yeah.
I think that'd be really cool to get everybody's story and
Oh,
have
I
fun.
could talk another 10 minutes each on each one of these incredible athletes. I
That's
really
awesome.
could. I mean, it's super cool. I mean, we're at almost 2 hours, and listeners are going to have to go back and forth to work several different times already. But I know we're going to talk a lot more about it later. Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys, bro.
Zach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. We wish you the best. We can't wait to follow along. And we'll definitely have you back on here when you guys finish, guys and girls, and we'll just have fun and catch up.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Love you both. We'll talk to you later.